Welcome to History in the Eyes of a Southerner with your host, Anthony Allen. On this channel, we will take a journey through time and relate history to the contemporary eyes of modern America. I hope you enjoy the ride as I investigate and document the wonderful events that have shaped our present world. All right, y'all. So back on the more fun topics. I want to talk about the Trent Affair. The Trent Affair could have very easily ended the War of Northern Aggression, at the end of 1861. The U.S. and Britain were not as good of friends as they would later become. In fact, I would venture to guess that they were still pretty pissed off at events that had occurred generation before War of 1812. And of course, before the War of 1812, when they were really pissed off, Revolutionary War. But the U.S. Navy at the time, being arrogant and protectorate, probably reaching back to the days of the Monroe Doctrine, decided that they were going to cut off all of the ports in the South. They cut them off from the Chesapeake Bay down to the Florida Keys and around to New Orleans and over into Texas. They had a blockade. Very smart plan, and it did slow down the South's replenishment of arms, which we needed. The South, we didn't have a whole lot of factories. I don't think we had any cannon factories at the time. In fact, a lot of our artillery, I believe, was captured Union stores. Um, we weren't very. We didn't have the industry that they had in the North. So by blockading us, actually probably saved quite a few Yankee lives. But the Trent Affair was a very little piece of the war, but it could have played a very, very major role. The U.S. Navy at the time was one of the, it wasn't as vast as it is today. But of course, it still had its mercantile fleets, it still had its warships, still had its frigates and whatever. Well, the USS San Jacinto, commanded by Charles Wilkes, intercepted a Royal Mail ship. And there were two Confederate envoys on board bound for England, John Slidell and James Murray Mason. Well, they thought they were going to treat them like spies. They boarded the ship and they took the two Confederate envoys off. And when they did, they held them in prison. England protested. France and England were getting along a little bit better. France was already thinking about coming in with us at the time. England already had their people over here, their diplomats, and they were speaking with the Confederate government. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do. Well, it don't take a rocket scientist to know that you don't kidnap two people off of a foreign ship and hold them in prison without pissing off the host ship, the host ship's country. And that's what happened. The U.S. already had their hands full. Lincoln already had his hands full with the South. Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. I mean, they at the time, the South was winning at this time. They knew they couldn't afford a war with a European power. So they wound up eventually capitulating and releasing the two Confederate diplomats, and they went on to England. Now, I have a theory on this. It's commonly known that England did not like the institution of slavery. France did not like the institution of slavery. They did not want to do business with a slave-holding republic, such as the Confederate States of America. But boarding their ships, and I want to say it happened off the coast of Bermuda, they weren't going to stand for it either. So inadvertently, the attitude in England was, we're going to help the South. Not really help the South, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Luckily for the North, England did not join on our side. If they did, the war would have been over. My guess is by about 1862, about the end of 1862. Lincoln would have surrendered. Jeff Davis would have been sitting in a rocking chair on the back porch of the White House in Washington, should he have chosen. Or maybe not. It's one of those what if situations. I'd like your comments on it. What do y'all think would have happened if England would have entered the war? This has been History in the